Perfect. Alrighty, so welcome to our week 7 weekly sync. We're going to kick off with demos. So does anyone want to volunteer to go first? All right.
So our issue was, I think it was issue number 12. Essentially, we would like to be able to delete items off of our shopping list when they're no longer relevant to our interests. Let me share my screen. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Can everybody see that all right?
Yep.
All right. So I have just logged in as myself on the deployed app, and then I clicked on cool test stuff. That's the list I'm on right now. And then essentially the main thing that we added is this delete button itself. And essentially I'm going to click an item. This is not food item. Um, it will prompt the user, essentially the name of the item, and then an accept or cancel button. If we hit OK, it removes it from the list. Something we noodled with is considering whether or not we want one more bit of feedback other than the item just disappearing off of the list to the user, but we couldn't find a very elegant way to do that quite yet. It sort of seemed like we had to consider whether we wanted to interrupt the user one more time with further information, or if we wanted to pop up a little UI element. We weren't sure exactly how we wanted to handle that quite yet. But that's just about it, just removing stuff. I'll do it one more time. I'm going to remove the food item that I bought. It's asking me if I want to remove the food item that I bought. And I'm going to go ahead. If you hit cancel, it doesn't remove it, but I'll go ahead and hit OK this time. And that's it.
Yay. Very nice. One comment before I forget it is just that I do like the way that you're showing us your thought process about why you are or are not adding extra like UI elements, or maybe just internal conversations we're having about whether or not it's a good idea or not. That's really helpful to see. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely had a few conversations this week about essentially that sort of like feedback to the user, whether or not we should add an issue and add another like aspect to this ticket or do it separately. We decided let's just do it separately and figure something out as a team, sort of a thing. As well as we were trying to noodle with Firebase and its responses when we are actually deleting something off of the Firestore. We essentially Firebase has a lot of weirdness to it that we weren't anticipating when it comes to it doesn't really send responses like status responses. So we'll maybe noodle through that as a team as well, how to maybe manage that or just understand it further.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good conversation to keep having. Andrea, do you want to walk us through the code?
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, I'm just going to step a little bit. All right, so we essentially changed 2 files. Our first one was our Firebase. We added, or we filled out the delete item function. So we poked through the docs and we imported delete doc method from Firebase Firestore. Scroll down here to our function. So for our delete item function, it's really very similar to the update item function that's already been created. We're passing in list path and the item ID from the front end, and we use that as a reference to pass into the delete doc method itself. And then we await the deletion. We popped it into a try catch block to try and pick up any errors that might get thrown. And currently it is a console log. I'll loop back to touch on this again at the end, and Shane kind of shared some of his thoughts about some of the things that we had been thinking about earlier. So the other changes we made were to the list item. And so we first imported the delete item function from our API, and we added the button to each of the items that shows up. So currently the text is delete, and we have a delete handler that gets run when you click on it. And coming up to our function here, it is async. So when you click on it, we have a window dialog that pops up to ask if you're sure you want to delete it. And so if the answer is true from the user, we await that delete item function that we defined earlier with the arguments that are needed. We definitely did feel like it was important to the user experience to include that item name in that dialog, just because, I don't know, maybe I have big thumbs, but I'm constantly poking on the wrong things. And without that piece of information, it's easy to delete something that you didn't want to delete, even if there is a confirmation dialog. So we also considered the inclusion of an ability to delete lists themselves, because we felt like if you can add a list, you really should have the ability to delete a list, and not just have lists hanging out forever. But I think in the purposes of keeping to our scope, we kept it to just deleting items, even though deleting lists is a very similar function in and of itself. And heading back into Firebase. So some of the weirdness, like Shane mentioned, was with the whole issue of Firebase not sending back any response codes. We really tried to create an error and had a really difficult time. We tested it out by hard coding in like non-existent item IDs. We tried changing the collection name from items to something else that didn't exist, but nothing was showing up. So there's really no response. As of what we can find from digging through the docs and some articles this week about how to kind of patch that sort of an issue. We're still figuring it out. And I think maybe as a team, a couple more brains, maybe we'll come up with a solution, maybe we won't. But yeah, Shane, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to that part.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add is that we did some research on Firebase, and it just seemed to be part of the aspects of like how it works, that it just doesn't have those status codes inherently being offered to essentially like that moment, that action of updating the doc or deleting the doc. But it might just be because we're not super familiar with like there's like a what do you call it? It's like a listener. It's like the streaming data quality of the way things are plugged together. Maybe there's something in there we can use, but it seems way out of the scope of this particular issue. And we were getting into like, okay, yeah, we wanted to figure out a way to force some information to either the developer or user, and we couldn't quite get there on this one, this week.
Yeah, I left a comment, but really nice job not getting too overwhelmed with you have a lot of really great ideas that came out of this, but I agree that definitely out of scope of this issue. So good job keeping it focused while also, doing a little bit of poking and a little bit of brainstorming of these are like definitely deleting a list, for example, is a really great idea that the team should look into. Definitely out of scope of this issue. But yeah, I also agree. I also, beyond like working on the TCL projects, I also don't have a ton of experience with Firebase and I'm not positive exactly what kind of response we can get, but I think it's a good idea to at least look into giving the users some additional feedback. One discussion I really liked on y'all's PR was about accessibility. Davina made a great suggestion about just like making sure that we're thinking about this while we're developing the app, which I think is a really great idea. I saw Andrea also was agreeing that like, yeah, we want to consider that throughout. And one thing to consider is that if a user cannot see the list, then they might not know that it's been updated. So if there's a way for us to incorporate that like feedback to them, we should definitely look into it. So I think those are amazing ideas that y'all are having. Anyone else have any questions or comments for this team?
Maybe I just want to add like appreciate the effort to dive in with the Firebase, especially the delayed, and then trying to think around how to handle the error deletion. But even though we don't get any answer, but I think you should you already have a good job with that one.
Round of applause. Very nice job with this issue, y'all. Davina, I know you're a person down, but do you want to go ahead and walk us through what you can with your demo?
Yeah, of course. So, Emily and I were working on issue number 13, which was to sort an item or sort a list by how soon items are due, and then also add a UI element that indicates how soon items are due. So as you can see here, so right now I am just demoing my local code. I re-requested reviews from everyone because I added one small touch. But so we have five different categories. I'm sorry, 5 different categories. We have overdue, soon, kind of soon. Actually, we don't have one for not soon right now, and then inactive. And so the way that this list works is that it's going to sort these items by how soon they are due. So overdue items will be at the top, then items that are due soon, and then kind of soon, and then inactive items that have not been purchased within 60 days will be down here at the bottom. If 2 items are due at the same time, so I just this morning added like 4 different items right here. The Alfredo sauce, cream cheese, and macadamia nuts and whipped cream are all due at the same time. So it alphabetizes these items that all have the same due date. One thing that Andrea pointed out and that Emily and I had also discussed is that kind of soon, those are very like vague things, and it's a little bit confusing to the user why these would be alphabetized, but not everything that's in the kind of soon scope. So that was something that Emily and I had discussed, like adding more UI elements to like kind of give the user more information on what that means and why it's alphabetized the way it is. Because these items are sorted by how soon they're due. Like, so this might be like 8 days and this one might be 14 days. So they're both kind of soon, but they're not alphabetized because you want to buy the Oreos, like a week sooner. And then I think we were also discussing like adding an indicator to tell the user what these mean, like something that says like how soon your items due, maybe at the top, that's what these words indicate. We didn't add it for this particular issue, but that's something that we could particularly add on in the future. I think that's it for the demo side of things. It's pretty straightforward. And so we changed 4 things, 4 files. So the first one, Emily and I thought it was a little bit weird that the issue wanted us to add the compare function to Firebase because it's not a Firebase function, but that is what the issue told us to do. So we put it here for now. I don't know if we want to move it in the future because it's not really like making any calls to Firebase. So it seemed a little bit odd to put it in this particular file, but we did for now. But this function just takes 2 items and compares them. So first it's going to compare, we kind of just, this like references the days between the purchase dates up here. So it's going to compare first if it's been more than 60 days since the item was last purchased. And that's going to make the item inactive and get sorted to the bottom. So first we check to see if the item is inactive and sort it to the bottom if it is. If it's not inactive, or if we have multiple items that are inactive, it's going to alphabetize the inactive items. Ray pointed that out. So that was the change I made last night. And then the next thing, it's going to check for, this is like the rest. So if it's not inactive, it's going to be sorted by the days until next purchase. So items that are due sooner will be sorted to the top. Items that are like in between, the kind of soon are going to be in the middle, also alphabetized. And then items that are due later will be returned towards the bottom. And because overdue is something that like already it's like it's going to be a negative number, those are automatically sorted towards the top. I think that was maybe like I don't remember if that was the one that was like the stretch goal, but that was like already happening. It was already at the top, so that just worked out for us. Ray made a point about using a different method to make this more concise. I have not added this in yet because I wanted to chat with Emily about it a little bit more. So I added that as like a future issue to refactor this to make it more concise. And then, so we added this function to the hooks file just so that we didn't clutter up the list item component in React. So this function here is what returns our inactive, overdue, soon, or kind of soon, or not soon UI. So it just basically says if the item hasn't been purchased within the last 60 days, return inactive. If it's less than 0 days, so if it hasn't been purchased on time, it's overdue. If it's less than or equal to 7 days, it's going to be soon. If it is less than 30 days, but more than 7 days, it'll be kind of soon. And then anything that is over 30 days, but not inactive is not soon. So that's just where the UI element gets returned here. And we pass this purchase urgency function into the list item down here. So we call that with the date next purchased and the date last purchased, and it will return basically when that item should next be purchased. And then in list, we just called the sort function. And I think that is it.
One thing I wanted to call out just in terms of
I'm
Kathleen,
having trouble hearing you.
yeah, I think we cannot hear you well.
Oh
Can
no,
you say-
is that better?
Like a little bit.
No. Okay. If anyone has questions, I'll put it in the chat.
I'm
We can
curious.
kind of hear you, but like you're really far away.
Yeah,
That's what it sounds like.
I have a quick question, Davina. How long did you figure out the sort functionality?
Sorry, what was that?
How long did you figure out how long did you solve the sort functionality?
Like, how long did it take us to
Yeah.
figure it out?
The sorting.
Honestly, so it didn't take us that long. Like, I would say maybe 15, 20 minutes, but
Yeah.
overall it took us about an hour because one thing I didn't point out, we spent a really long time trying to figure out why it wasn't sorting things. We had it basically already written like this, and we were like, it should work, and it wasn't sorting things correctly. And we realized it was because we were not comparing numbers, we were comparing the string of a number, so it was not organizing it correctly. So we spent like maybe an extra 30 or so minutes trying to figure out why it wasn't correctly sorting items when the code looked correct. So other than that, it didn't take us too long.
Okay, got it. Yeah, great job actually. When I tried to review this one, it's also took me like some time to understand the logic, and then yeah, but you did it. Good job.
Thank you.
Can y'all hear me now? Is
Yep.
that better?
Better.
Okay. Sorry
You
about
sound
that.
far away, but yeah, we can understand you.
Okay, sorry. So one thing I wanted to point out just in terms of the workflow that I really appreciated is the way that Davina, you created a new issue for something that was like not a blocker for this issue, but like you wanted to be able to incorporate feedback on the PR. So you were like, I do want to address this, but it's not a blocker and I want to be able to move along. I think that's a really good way of handling things. Like in a work environment, I do that all the time. If someone's like, especially if someone brings up something that's completely not related, like out of scope or something, you definitely, it might be valid feedback, but it might not be a blocker. Or if it's just something that's like a refactoring, that's definitely good to do. Keeping yourself focused on what you want to do while also keeping track of future work you want to do is a really good practice. So I wanted to call that out as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Davina and Emily?
Not a question, but props to using that sort function so beautifully.
Thanks. Definitely tested my knowledge of compare functions for sure.
Davina is a pro on like lots of things now after the past few weeks. So, all right. If there's no other questions or comments, round of applause for Davina and Emily. And I'll pass it over to Ray to walk us through our retro.
Sure. So this is retro week 7, correct? Yep. So yeah, this is the same drill like usual. I will send the link and then yep, just send it. Everyone can write any appreciation, what went well, and also what could be improved, and also action items maybe for the next weeks. And how long usually, Kathleen? 10 minutes or 5 minutes, do you think?
I think we can probably do 10.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends usually on how much time we have left, but we've got a good amount of time, so.
Yep, okay. I will pause the recording. Okay, welcome back everyone. Thank you for writing everything in the retro. We'll share screen. Okay. And we can start from the appreciation. Start from Devina. You can start reading.
Yeah, I just wanted to really appreciate you, Ray, for always coming up with like finding small details that we could change to make our code work a little bit better. Like just small things that like I wouldn't have even considered, like the local compare. I really appreciate the suggestions like that to help us make our app a little bit more concise.
Yep, you're welcome. Happy to help give like something insight all the time. Let's see the next one. Shane.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize that it seems like our app is becoming more feature complete, and that feels pretty neat. We're getting like, yeah, just to the part where we start messing with the aesthetics of it more than the functionality, which is cool.
Cool. Next one, Devina again.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Angie and Shane because every time you two work together, you always come up with like out of the box things I would have never even considered when working on your issue and find a ways to make our app better, like the whole error thing and like the taking into account that Firebase isn't sending back those errors and how we can potentially improve upon that. I think I mentioned it in another one of our boards later on, but I really liked the whole delete list item or delete list suggestion that you guys came up with. I think that's really a good idea.
Cool. Next one is from me. So yeah, I really appreciate the effort of paying attention to the detail on solving all the issue. Yeah, especially like thinking out of the box of the main feature, which is a great job. Next one, Andrea.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone for like going down these like deep dives and rabbit holes with us, but still being able to really pull it back and like refocus back onto what our main goal is. Like I know Ray spent most of office hours this week trying out error things with us, and even if we didn't come up with a great solution, it was still really cool to be able to dig deep and see what's out there.
Yep. Nice. This one, Kathleen.
Mine's very similar to things that have been said, but yeah, I think you all are really good at not just following instructions, but thinking about the bigger picture and bringing ideas for how to improve the app, but also staying focused and getting your work done for the week and not like totally going down, like getting lost along the way. So that's a really good balance that you all bring.
Nice. Okay, all the operation done. And then next one, Shane.
Yeah, I just think we're doing a pretty solid job of using like the documentation for what we're interacting with to inform what we do next, rather than trying to like force things to work in a way that they don't. I like that we're just like going back to that to actually verify that we understand how things are actually working.
Yep, nice. Yeah, nice on working on with the docs. It's kind of like boring, but I think you kind of like push yourself to reading the docs, which is good. Devina,
I think that we have really nailed our workflow, like from start to finish, pair programming to asynchronous fixes to the pull request reviews. I think we've really started to come together and like we're embodying collaboration on another level now.
agree. See, next one. Andrea.
Similarly, I think we have some great open lines of communication across the board at this point, and I really appreciate the way that our team works, and no one's like on their own little island trying to plug away and do their own thing without any input. And I feel like it's like Davina said, it really feels like collaboration in a team at this point.
Yeah, agree. Next one, it's me. Communication between all the team members are amazing, especially on PR reviews. So I'm really happy to see everything's going well with our communication. Caitlin.
Totally agree with the points that were brought up previously, but I also just think that you all are doing a really good job technically, getting through some really gnarly issues, and like Shane was saying, like it feels like a real app, and now we just got to polish it up, but it's really coming along. It's really impressive. So great job.
Cool. Next one. Caitlin.
This is a tiny thing, and I don't know if you all would agree or not, but I was wondering how we feel about the fact that we have to re-request reviews on PRs once we've made like a follow-up commit. Yeah, if it's helpful, if you all like being able to review each commit, we can totally leave it as that, but it feels like it might possibly be causing some issues of like bottleneck if someone's just like adding someone's like incorporating someone's feedback and then they have to re-request a review from that person. I don't know how we feel about that.
I definitely agree with your suggestion. I think that like if it's like a major changes, maybe then we would definitely want to re-request a review. But when it's like you're changing one line of code because of a const versus let thing, then yeah, I think prefer not have to re-request a review for those minor changes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I agree. Sorry, go ahead, Chen.
I was just gonna say I agree. Yeah, I'm with you on that. It sort of feels like now that we have most of the features kind of in place, most likely like we probably won't break things terribly with the styling, I'm guessing. Like it's kind of harder to break things terribly with the styling. So maybe that's like it's a good time to lift that.
Yeah, I think at this point, everyone know when we should like merge or not. So I think it's not really necessary to do like request review. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, it feels like we're on the same page. So I can go ahead and I'm pretty sure there's a setting somewhere in GitHub that's forcing that. So I'll just like, or Ray, maybe you and I can take a look and remove
Sure.
that.
Yep, I will do that after this. Okay, nice feedback, Edlin. Next one, Shin.
Yeah, essentially this might be a little bit like 2 weeks late to even be concerned about this, but it's sort of like when I was deleting things from the shared list, it dawned on us late that we might be affecting the other group's work and like the sorting and all that sort of a thing. And I was thinking to myself like we haven't been using like mock data and things like that, and we've been doing fine, but if there needs to be any sort of deletion or addition to the database in the future, just letting each other know that like, hey, I'm gonna be messing with this. It was a little bit late to mention it, but something that we came across this week.
Cool. Yeah, actually, I think for the share list, I think it's because when at the beginning we just play around, actually should be not happening from the beginning. So I think it's totally fine. But yeah, thank you for bringing up this one, Shane. Let's see. Okay, Shane.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering. So I know we started talking about this a little bit ago. Can somebody share the link again with like we started to accumulate thoughts on styling, I think, somewhere, and I can't remember where that was. And then other than that, we could start like imagining something different shape-wise or structure-wise, it might be a good time to like start adding to that. At least from I'll start adding to it in the near future.
Yep, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I think in the next issue that we also talk about Figma or Canva, I guess, to talking about the mood board. So we can start from there too. And yep, another one, Shane.
Oh yeah, nothing big. Just it would be good if we started throwing more things on the issue board. Now that it's starting to become, it's like 3 or 4 things left. We can start adding to it without it being like overwhelming, stuff like that.
Cool. Sounds good. And yep, Devina.
Yeah, I think one of the important features that Shane and Andrea brought up would be to delete the list. I think that's like an important, just as important of a feature as being able to delete an item. So I definitely think that should be like a feature that we implement here in the future.
Yep, good point. Sounds good. Yep. Yep, it's all about the retro today. Anything want to add, Kathleen, or shall I go to the next one? The issues?
Yeah, I think we're good to move on to issues. Was there anything else anyone wanted to discuss with retro?
The only thing that I can think of came up this week that we haven't talked about specifically is we ran into when we were looking at the delete documents, we noticed that Firebase has like a sort of like rule for if you delete the last item in a collection, it will delete the entire collection itself. But for our Firebase right now, as it is, it's not it's not like our collection isn't actually like a collection in Firebase, or like what we're calling it a different thing, and it doesn't follow that rule. So our deletion functionality might have to follow a different pattern than what Firebase normally would have us do. Something to consider.
I definitely think it would be useful for us because I know there've been a lot of ideas brought up, but we were talking about this, but we haven't quite added a list of those issues like as issues to our repo. So maybe taking some time, if we have a few minutes at the end of this to start brainstorming or just starting a Slack thread or something to kind of organize all of those ideas would be helpful. Yeah.
Anything else? Nope. Okay. I think we can go ahead to the next issue, which is this issue will be the last issue, right? Am I correct? Yeah, last issue from the Collab Lab. Okay. So issue 14, I believe this is for everyone. So after this, maybe everyone can start to build any issue, which is I think I already saw from Devina and Andrea and Shane, which is good. And yep. So for the summary for the 14th, as a user, I want the app to look professional and welcoming. The last 2 weeks of the project will function a little differently than the rest. So your team will organize around a lightweight design process to come up with a polished look and feel for your app. This will require you to make a decision together as a whole team, then implement your vision. The process outlined here is our best suggestion for how to proceed, but you are free to take whatever approach you see fit. And you will notice this is the last issue on the board, and that's because the expectation is for you to write the stories need to complete the implementation of your design direction, which is you already started. As always, lean on your mentors for guidance if you are unsure how to proceed. And yep, this is the design process. First one, what is tone you are going for? What feeling are you trying to convey? And try to come up with 3 to 5 words that best capture how you want user to perceive your app. Example like fun, clean, ironic, business-like, and many more in here. And then 2, create a mood board. A mood board helps everyone get on the same page in terms of direction in which you want to take your design and elements to your mood board that represent the tone you're trying to achieve. And yep, I think this is going to mood board in here. You can also make your reference from here. And yep, third one, decide on fundamental elements of your design, including the following: typography, colors, and also imaginary or iconography. And then there is a link in here. You can try to look at it. There's a Google's and also the icons that you can add to your apps. And decide whether you want to choose, you want to code your CSS from scratch or integrate CSS framework. There are pros and cons to each. Vanilla CSS give you more control, but it can be harder or take more time to achieve a given effect. And frameworks help you get things done faster, but often at the cost of not giving you all full control of the design. So for my perspective, if you can do from vanilla CSS, it's better to learn more from everything from the basics. But if you also want to try framework, also fine so. And yeah, if you choose to use a framework, try to evaluate your option to make sure pick one that will suit your needs. Consider about the quality of documentation, ease of integration, built in with accessibility in mind, and also activeness of the community. There are several idea option for the frameworks: Bootstrap, Chakra UI, Material UI, Semantic UI, and also Tailwind UI, Tailwind CSS. And yeah, this is for the next one. Yeah, when you're creating a mood board, you can start with Canva or Figma, I believe, and try to utilize that platform. And yeah, this is the next week issue. Anyone to have any discussion or add something?
I did just want to emphasize that this issue, the summary was a little bit outdated. We need to update that. It says like the final 2 weeks, something. We have 4 weeks left, but this has historically taken 2 weeks to do. It is a lot. It's also a lot less structured than probably what you're used to. It's a lot more up to you. So try not to get overwhelmed. Try and follow that process that's laid out there. It's really helpful to just start at the beginning, start with just mood boarding. Like Ray was mentioning, there's a lot of tools available. I would recommend using Figma just because that's a really popular tool that you'll probably come across if you haven't already. So like, if you already have a tool that you prefer to use, feel free to use that. But if you're not sure where to start, I would recommend just using Figma because it'll be something that you'll probably come across in the future. But yeah. Do y'all have any questions for us about this?
I think my question is kind of your experience in the past with other groups. Have people, in terms of the UI, like the design portion, have they created like new issues so that we're kind of on track for the week and then kind of add them for the following week as they come up? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it is a little bit up to you all. What I would probably recommend is having some of those more brainstorming conversations first, because right now you might not necessarily know what work needs to be done. Try and have some of those conversations either synchronously or asynchronously. And then I would recommend writing issues. At the beginning, you're gonna want to be having a conversation as a team of 4. But once you define the work, you can maybe split up into pairs, or if there's something small, maybe even one person working on something. So I would say at the beginning, you'll want to decide together, but defining the work will allow you to kind of work in parallel, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question? Okay. The other thing to keep in mind is that, like, as we've been talking about, like, we have 4 weeks left, and we're starting in on the designs, but there are other issues that we've started to identify that we want to work on. So maybe also just keeping in mind, what do we need to get done for our MVP for the end of our project? And then what are kind of the bonus things that, like, if we have time, we'll work on these. So maybe just prioritizing that list as well, to keep yourselves from getting overwhelmed and make sure that you're able to just to have a viable product at the end of our 10 weeks. And then if you continue to work on it, that's totally up to your discretion.
Just to throw it out there, I started a thread in the Slack for issues so that we have one spot to just discuss maybe issues in terms of functionality and not the design side of things that we may want to add issues for.
Love it. Nice. If there are no questions, maybe Ray, we can like end our official time together and give the collabbies like these last 10 minutes just to start planning if they want to.
Sure.
Cool.
Do we want to stop the recording or it's just still going?
Up to y'all. If you want to keep it recording, we can. If you prefer not to. We'll make sure to summarize for Emily though, whatever
Oh, yeah.
you're talking about, but yeah, I guess we can go ahead.
Okay.
Do y'all have a preference?
Hmm.
I'll say let's stop the recording then. Like maybe you'll be more comfortable just like spitballing ideas if we stop the recording.